I also admire my Polish culture, and I don't want it to be destroyed by Muslim migrants coming from the Middle East or from Africa.
If you're so concerned about this threat to Polish culture, why did your government hand out work visas to so many African migrants? As the EU faces a migration crisis and Poland's new left-wing government shuts down the public broadcaster, I'm joined by the former Conservative Prime Minister of Poland. Do you believe that migration from third world countries, particularly from Africa and Asia, represents a threat to European civilization?
Yes, I do believe that they represent, the illegal migrants represent threat to the European peace, to European security, and
I'm glad that he's not afraid to say that, right? Because I feel like a lot of Western European countries are so scared, or you're not allowed to say stuff like this publicly. But something that I do like in this country is that it seems like both the right and the left are in agreement on this. From what I understand, and I'm gonna do my research, apparently they sold around 100,000 visas to Saudi Arabia, or that's what the headline is. So from around 2018 to 2023, a cash for visa system grew up around Polish consulates and agencies in multiple countries. People could pay thousands of euros to fast track or secure Polish visas. However, a media and later audit reported that 350 to 370K visas went to applicants from Asian and African countries, but public sources do not show a clean verified record of this. One example often cited, a group from India posed as a Bollywood filmmakers with a fake movie project and obtained visas. So the PIS ran on hard anti-illegal migration, while at the same time, their ministry and consulates were allowing a corruption-prone system that granted visas to a large number of non-EU migrants. Interesting. I'm just trying to be as honest as possible. I think one of the big arguments that's going on between Poland and the EU. Poland has received a lot of funding from the EU, billions of dollars to go into the development of their country. However, they seem to be refusing the EU mandate for them to accept migrants. Poland's argument is that they accepted 2 million immigrants from Ukraine when the war happened, which I think is totally fair. But I can see from both sides, because the EU is investing a lot of money into Poland, but then when they try to implement their rules or this decree, which I don't agree with, however, I understand where the EU is coming from if they invested a lot of money to the country. That's all I'm saying.
We do not agree on any form of compulsory distribution of migrants into Poland or paying for not accepting those migrants. This is one of the biggest threats going forward for the European Union, sir, because accepting 2 million of illegal migrants can be the beginning of huge wave, which can pose a very serious threat to the whole of the European Union.
And it's not just with migrants from these third world countries, right? All the Ukrainians coming into the country also has made a lot of problems for Poland. The main thing is cost of living has just gone up drastically. If you import 2 million people into your country and they all need a place to live, a lot of these Ukrainians are buying businesses, they're buying homes, and they're jacking up all the prices. I have a realtor friend here who's Ukrainian who rents out apartments in the center for ridiculously high prices. Apparently Ukrainians have no problem buying it, which begs a question. Apparently all these Ukrainians are escaping war, but where's all this money coming from? I'm just asking questions. And I think a lot of times the conversation goes to Islam or Muslim or African countries, right? But just any form of mass migration always causes problems for the host country, no matter where you go. So I'm trying to be as honest and unbiased as possible when I look at these interviews. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like I can never trust mainstream media nowadays. It seems like every news outlet has some form of agenda, and they're always reporting different versions of the truth. To keep myself informed, the only place I trust is Ground News. For every story, you can see which types of news outlets reported on the story. This story, for example, talks about how 180 migrants were able to cross into Poland illegally through a tunnel from Belarus. You can look at the bias comparison to see which news outlets reported on it, and you can see how factually accurate each of these outlets were. One of the coolest features of this app is the blind spot feed, which highlights stories that are underreported by one side of the spectrum. This is why I think we're so divided now. These social media algorithms are showing us things purposely in order to make us mad and for us to engage. If you subscribe today, you get 40% off of their vintage plan, which gives you unlimited access to all of their features. If you guys want to check them out, go to ground.news/west or scan the QR code right here.
Are you concerned that as Poland becomes a richer nation, more migrants will flood into Poland, and that might change the demographics of Poland, like in countries Germany, Britain and France, where we've seen huge demographic changes over the last 20 or 30 years.
And the birth rate in Poland is so low. It's so weird because all over the world, as the country gets richer, people want to have kids less. Something that I respect about Islam is that family and having kids is super important. So no matter how much money they have, they always want to have kids. And that's something that the Europeans are losing right now. And I'm not entirely sure why.
As you say, that might lead to various issues in terms of security, in terms of social cohesion, economic pressures. So are you concerned that Poland could witness that same demographic shift that Britain, France and Germany have all seen?
Yes, I am fearful of such a tendency, which is clearly visible in France, in Germany and in other countries. We were very open to war refugees from Ukraine. We still have close to 2 million of Ukrainian population in our country. We have been very generous for them. We have offered access to healthcare system, to the education system, to social security system.
And they were also getting paid by the government. When the Ukrainians first came, they were getting paid, I think it was like 800 zloty or something like that. And even up until recently, like at my old building, I lived with a couple of Ukrainian girls, and they were telling me that they were also receiving money from the government. I don't know if they had to pay for education here. Poland was very generous to the Ukrainians that came into the country.
More than 1 million of those have jobs. They pay taxes in Poland, pay social security, and also they behave very well. And they are culturally very similar to Poles. It is not that we are opposing any support for our neighbors. We have presented all sorts of solidarity aspects, and we have opened our hearts and our gates.
But this is an interesting point because the Polish people and the Ukrainians in general kind of hate each other still. They have a long-standing history of hating each other, and these are people that share the same roots. They're both Slavic, they are both Christian countries, and they still have issues. Now imagine you bring in a whole entire new population that looks different than you, that has a completely different history with a completely different religion and way of life. Of course they're going to have some issues, right? So this is the bigger picture on migration in general. I don't think a lot of people are against immigration per se, but I believe most people are against illegal immigration, but specifically mass immigration of any kind, even legal mass immigration. I do think that causes a lot of problems for the host country. And I can understand why people are hesitant about that.
But this is very much different from huge Muslim migrants from the Middle East who are coming to Germany and France and other countries and who want to change their culture of those countries, those nations. I am clearly opposing to such attempts. Admiring French culture, I'm admiring Spanish culture and the British culture, but I also admire my Polish culture and I want to preserve it. I want to nurture it. I don't want it to be destroyed by Muslim migrants coming from the Middle East or from Africa.
If you're so concerned about this threat to Polish culture, why did your government hand out work visas to so many African migrants? You were criticized by Confederacja for allowing in thousands of people from Africa into Poland, and some people say that they're concerned, again, about changing Poland's demographics.
We have not been giving those visas because we have a very stringent system of migrant workers who can be accepted for 3 or 6 months. Process which you have described was part of the political campaign crime related to 250 visas, not 250,000 visas. There was a crime, there was a corruption, but this related to 250.
Okay, let's fact check that. I don't know how true that is. So he's kind of half saying the truth, half not. Foreign Ministry said that the main criminal investigation concerned 268 applications, large-scale irregularities for around 366,000 visas to Asians, Africans, and Russians. Okay, so the broader audit is not saying that 366,000 people paid bribes, but that the visa issuance framework for those hundreds of thousands were legally faulty, poorly supervised, and open to abuse. Okay, that's not totally accurate though. Both sides seem to be lying or changing the story. I hate when politicians do this, it's so annoying.
We have very stringent rules to accept any migrant workers. We accept them only if they are needed in different sectors of our economy. And the scandal which you have briefly described was part of the propaganda during the political campaign. The best proof for this, the best evidence of this, is that scandal related to 250 visas and not 250,000 of visas.
If you are a Polish immigrant living in America, Canada, Western European countries, I highly recommend that you come back to Poland. The country is growing very quickly. There is a big problem with the birth rate right now, so we need Polish people to come back and make families here.